website called cameralabs.com. If anybody's interested in reviews of DSLRs, digital cameras, point and shoots, accessories, lenses, all of that sort of stuff, anything photography related, please go and check out the site. I review all of these in an insane amount of detail. If that's the kind of thing you're into, then you'll really, really enjoy it. And I'm really looking forward to chatting with you guys tonight. My own sort of style photography, I love doing landscapes, but I'm not going to compete with you guys on that. So if we have time, I'd like to talk a little bit about maybe some more technical type shots, maybe some astrophotos. So I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. This kind of comes later in the Hangout. We're going to do all kinds of stuff today, do a few critiques from people that respond in the thread that want their photos critiqued. But later, we all have our own photos that we're going to talk through, kind of the art and science behind them. And you sent me some really cool astro-type shots, and we'll go through those. Thanks, Gordon. So let's have the great Kevin Kelly introduce himself. He is, I'm really excited to have him just on a whole different order of magnitude. I've watched all of his TED Talks, and he's not known for photography, but he is quite the photographer. So say hello, Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin Kelly. I am now an author and was formerly an editor of a magazine called Wired, which I co-founded. But before all that, actually, I was a photographer in Asia, photographing mostly people in culture, and a culture that was disappearing very fast, I might add. I had a book published by Taschen, but I'm not so much into equipment and the technical stuff. For me, it's more the eye than the camera. But I still photograph a lot today, almost as a compulsion, even though I spend most of my time writing words. So I seem to like to have words and pictures. I joke that I got into writing because my captions kept getting longer and longer, and I found I had more to say. So I'm delighted to be here, and for me, this is also a great privilege to be hanging around with other people who are photographic compulsives as well, and I hope to learn a lot.
All right, awesome. You know, they say that people that write a lot can always speak very well, and that's certainly the case with you. Let's see if it's also the case with Tom Anderson here, because he writes a lot, and he started getting into photography. Hey, Tom.
Hey. It's probably not the case. But yeah, probably unlike everybody else here, the whole reason I'm here is because of Trey, meaning like I never took a photo in my life besides just your regular old camera phone or, you know, your sort of point and shoot at a party until I met him on Google+. And then we met in person, and then, I don't know, I guess it was about a month ago that we went to Burning Man and then to China together, and just for, you know, to hang out, but also to shoot for the first time. So I'm the true beginner, and I owe it all to Trey.
Well, you'll have to say that, but thanks, Tom. You're doing great. Hey, Nicole, tell us about Nicole, and if you have your new book nearby, hold up your new book.
Oh, I do.
Okay.
Right here.
I knew it was nearby. Yay!
Yeah, I'm Nicole. Thanks for having me on, Trey, and everyone. This is really cool. I'm a photographer. I do mostly stock photography, food, and lifestyle, and of course, I'm an author. That's my third book with Peach Pit. So I do a lot of writing about photography and bits and tidbits on my blog. My blog is I'm kind of known as Nicolesy, and it's Nicole SY on the interwebs. So my blog is nicolesyblog.com.
All right, thank you, Nicole. How about you, Thomas Hawk, the great Thomas Hawk? You look so mysterious there in black with your T-shirt. You look kind of awesome there, actually.
Oh, well, you know, I'm Thomas Hawk. I'm on Google Plus as Thomas Hawk, and I've got thomashawk.com as my blog, and I'm kind of Thomas Hawk on Flickr, every place else on the internet. I like to take a lot of pictures. I've got a blog. You know, I'm Trey's #1 fan. You know, I can't get enough of him. I'm so inspired.
Don't say that.
Oh, come on. No, it should be fun tonight. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, good. let's jump over to Keith. Hey, Keith, tell us about you and your new broadcasting network and all that good stuff.
Well, hi, I'm Keith Barrett, keithbarrett.com and keithbarrett.tv, and I'm also here because of Trey. He's a very kind guy, and I'm sort of representing beginners because I'm still doing point and shoot, and I have Disney World in my backyard, so I have a rather extravagant area to go play and experiment in, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Sure. Hey, Chi, you're kind of here as the Google guy, and I know you wanted to sit back in the background, but you just went on a Mediterranean vacation. You started taking photos, and we didn't talk about this beforehand, but say hi and talk about your photography and this sort of thing. All right, cool. So if nobody knows, Chi is one of the guys that invented Google Hangouts. So we'd all like to thank him, and
Bravo.
I don't know, it's wonderful. Photographers love these Hangouts because photography is such a solitary sport. We just spend time in our own heads and by ourselves, and it's nice to spend time around other people. So thank you very much, and also thanks to the other people there at Google that help promote this, like Vic and Dotra, and I always picture, everyone loves Vic, but I always picture him as, like if you guys had a company picnic and, it came time to play volleyball and he was out there in his shorts. I always picture Vic as the one that everyone's talking about because his socks are pulled up too high. I could see that. I don't know if it's true. Maybe it's just in my head. Oh.
That's a weird visual.
Well, also, Chi, I'm honored that this is your second, big YouTube live hangout. We got between the Black Eyed Peas and the Dalai Lama, so this is definitely an anomaly. Well, so I want to start by asking Kevin something, because Kevin is a writer and he does all these other fabulous things with his life, but you're also a photographer. Do you find it? When you start talking to people, especially in the U.S. or at least the West, they immediately try to categorize you as one kind of person or another kind of person. But really nowadays we can be so many kinds of people. How has the photography kind of remained a part of your life, and how does it, suffuse into your overall being?
It's a really good question. I mean, the way I like to say it is all of us have multiple business cards. I'm willing to bet that everybody here has more than one business card. And that's because we have multiple interests and multiple facets to our lives. And that's really not that unusual, and I think it's quite the norm these days. But why a photographer? For me, photography is more than an excuse, but it's a device to help me get out and look, to force me to see, to really observe and perceive. If I didn't have photography, I would spend too much time inside in front of a computer or with my head down looking at the floor or the street in front of me. But because of the frame and the perspective that I have as a photographer, it forces me to really look, to try and see something. And that seeing is kind of not just a visual seeing, but to perceive. And I think that habit of always looking to see what's going on is something that I get from photography, even when I'm not behind the camera.
Yeah, it's a very interesting way to think about it. Do you find yourself taking a lot of like big shots with your big DSLR, or do you also use your camera phone or whatever around with you?
I don't have a DSLR and I don't have a camera phone. I use
old school film.
No, I don't use film either. Believe me, in the whole argument about film, film's good riddance for me. I mean, I carried around 500 rolls of film in my backpack and 2 Nikon bodies and 5 heavy lenses, and I am so happy that I don't have to do that anymore. I mean, I'm one of the people who just said, good riddance to film, yay for digital. but I use little cameras. I use little Lumixes that I have, and I find them adequate for me. And even the book that I published with Tashin, some of the photographs were with Nikon film, and some were with point and shoot film that was processed at Costco. So I'm really not that much into the super high resolution stuff. I appreciate it, but that's not me. I photograph mostly people in cultures, so you have to be fast. It's kind of the moment. You wait around hours and hours for that one thing, and then you're in there, and you want to be invisible to some extent. And so speed is really what I'm looking for when I'm photographing the kinds of pictures that I'm doing, which is to capture in that moment some essence of a very deep culture and the kind of life force, the essence of a culture that's as reflected in that one moment. And for me, small and fast is really what I'm looking for in terms of a camera.
Well, I can't wait for people to see these 3 photos that you sent me ahead of time, because I was super impressed. I'm always impressed when I see someone in one discipline that does something amazing, and they do something amazing in a completely different discipline too. So it's always humbling to me. So Lisa is kind of one of these people. Lisa is you have this mega best-selling multi-million-dollar app. I don't even know how many millions that thing's made now. But I know you just roll in money at night, and then you just roll in lenses. But what's it been like? Because I know you're always up really late at night working on the app, and then you're like so drained, but you want to go shoot. And how are you achieving? Because I think a lot of people are in your position where they have a real job, but they also love to go out and take photos, and it's just sometimes too much. So how do you balance it?
Well, I think it's interesting that the definition of what a photographer is changing. I mean, anyone can be a photographer. You don't need expensive cameras. You don't need, all you need is a camera phone or a point and shoot, and you can take amazing pictures. Sorry, I'm distracted. But yeah, so the definition of a photographer is shifting, and I think when I started taking pictures, I felt like I needed to be a professional photographer, and I needed to earn money, and I needed to, have, shoot weddings or shoot, events, and, gradually over time I've just gotten so busy that I can't actually maintain a full working job as a photographer. So now it's purely for me. And even though I do, a few jobs here and there, my primary goal as a photographer now is to shoot things that I want to shoot and to develop my skills. And it's really been freeing to shoot. I shoot with Canon 5D Mark II, and all the bells and whistles. But I also shoot with my iPhone. I also shoot with my Canon S95, just a point and shoot. And like, I never stop taking pictures. Like, if I wasn't talking to you, I'd be taking pictures, like macros of like the cupcakes I bought. It's just like I walk through life and I feel like I have to take pictures, and anyone who's been with me for 5 minutes gets so annoyed and says, why do you have to do this? Why do you have to do it? And for me, that's how I see the world, by capturing these moments, and by, and in 10 years when I look back, I will be so grateful. And I think, Thomas Hawk, you're a perfect example of someone who's capturing the world in such a infinitesimal amount that you have so many pictures, but it's just like you're capturing a snapshot of what it's like to be alive at this point in life. And when everyone looks back in 10 years, it's going to be so amazing that every single one of us is taking pictures, whether it be like snapping a shot of our lunch or our kids, or it's just I think it's such an amazing time to be a photographer, and to sort of welcome everyone into this world and say, hey, it's not about being, technical and being a professional. It's about capturing the moments of your life.
Great.
Hey, Thomas, how do you? You kind of have two jobs. One job seems like you're a full-time poster on Google Plus. Your other job is you're taking photos.
Yeah.
Do you get out there to take enough photos, or do you feel like you're getting out there enough, or what?
Yeah, I do. I go out a lot and shoot. Lately, I've been working on this project to shoot the 100 largest American cities. So I've been kind of going to these different cities, and then I'll just spend 5 or 6 days, heads down. I won't even be on the internet. I'll just be like, go crazy and just shoot 20 hours and sleep 4 and spend 5 or 6 days, and I'll come back with, 20,000 frames and process those. But I get out and about too. I'll run around, town. I was out last night in North Beach, and we might go shoot the Bay Bridge tomorrow. On Sunday, I'm going to go to this Burning Man decompression thing in San Francisco. But yeah, I mean, I think you just have to think about it kind of as an obsession, and that the photos need to be taken. And my own rule is I have to process at least 350 photos a week. So for me.
Or what happens if you don't?
Well, slowly you begin to lose energy, and after like 4 or 5 months of that, you could very well die. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's just it's stuck in my head, man. It lives inside of me, and I've always got to be shooting, and I think that by keeping up a frenetic pace and keeping, up an intensity, I'm going to get a lot of photos that are going to be pretty bad, but hopefully I do get a few good ones out of it. And I just find that I try to shoot as much as I can, and I shoot for hours and hours at a time, and I go on these trips and I shoot and I do more shooting, and I'm 2 years behind on my processing, and I just never stop. And I find that inevitably out of that comes interesting photographs.
It's very similar to the writer's dictum of writing, say, 350 words a day, or it's usually maybe 800 words a day. That's how you write a book. People say, how do you write a book? Well, you write 500 words every day, no matter what it is, even if they're lousy words, stupid words, crummy words. You do 500 words a day, and at the end of the year, you'll have a book.
Kevin, you're right. Although I like to think more about myself more in the Kerouac style, and I took some pictures of his great scroll for On the Road, and I kind of like more the idea of being hopped up on speed and just going nonstop for 24 hours a day.
Well, actually, him and the scroll is a little bit of a myth, because he was writing off of very meticulous notebooks that he'd been keeping for a very long time on a daily basis, and that's what was the basis for that stroll. So he actually was doing a daily practice.
He was cheating. I'm kidding. No, I actually got into it with them because they wouldn't let you take photographs of the scroll, and I took them anyways, which I probably shouldn't have. So.
Well, Thomas and Kevin, what do you think about this? There's this 365 project where they encourage you to go take a photo every single day. Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be for beginners to get out there. And I've always, not preached is the wrong word, but I've always been a little bit against that. And I don't know if it's me projecting my own personality on it or not, but I feel like you should really only go out and take pictures when the muse visits, because it's such a creative process that if you're not feeling creative, or you just don't have any ideas, or if you don't feel like it on that given day, you should not go out and take photos, because as soon as you look at the camera and you feel sort of an obligation, like, oh, I guess I got to go take my daily photo, as soon as you feel like you should do something, it kind of means that you don't really want to do it.
I'm on the other side. There's actually a very famous, I wouldn't call it, kind of an experiment done by a pottery teacher. It was just in a book called Art and Fear. And what they did was they had a pottery class, and they said to the class, there's 2 ways to get an A in this class. You can submit at the end of the semester of the year your best single pot, and I'll grade it on that. So you could kind of work towards just one thing, or I'll give you a grade based on the number of pounds, the total weight of everything that you've done, whether it's good or not. And so you could just produce as much as possible on just sheer volume. If you do 200 pounds of pottery, that's better than 100 pounds. And it turned out at the end of the year that the people with the best pots were the people who had produced the most pots, because that volume, like Tom was saying, just creating so many that they had more of a chance to actually find a thing that was new and inventive. And the person who are focused on just trying to perfect one pot to get that perfect pot to make it absolutely right, just, they got stuck. They just could never really get to that great pot. And so I favor the idea of like doing it every day, even when you don't feel like doing it, because in that little friction, in that tension, you'll do something that will surprise yourself.
I agree. I have to agree with Kevin on this one. I have, the cool thing about my job is with stock photography, I get to shoot basically whatever I want. I obviously tailor things to know that, this style of photograph or this specific subject is going to sell better or is more likely to be licensed, through the website. But I'm still getting to choose my subjects. I get to choose my background, everything. And there are several times when I am going off to a shoot or I'm going to set up a food shoot in my house and I'm just like, laziness or whatever, and I'm just like, I just don't feel like doing this right now. Of course, then I do it, and I'm so happy I did. And when I'm in the moment, of course, when I'm actually shooting, I'm really happy that I'm doing it. But I think it's good. I've tried the 365 project, and it was like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, before iPhones, and it was actually a real big challenge. And I think I did get some really great photographs out of it through doing that. I have one that I actually really, really like. It's a really great photo of a guy smoking a cigar that I can think off the top of my head. And, I wouldn't have captured that if I hadn't been doing a 365, but it did get to be, it was difficult for me, because there weren't iPhones. I'd say now if it were an iPhone-centric kind of 365 project, I'd probably be able to actually complete the entire year, because it's so much easier just to pick up my phone and create a photograph, or maybe use my X100 or something. But I think it's good. I don't think that people should feel badly if they don't actually finish the project, but I think it's a really good, thing to try for anyone who really wants to get into photography. You learn things that you wouldn't necessarily learn if it was just, a great sunset and you have to go out and photograph it right now. Why not go out and try and photograph a bad sunset? Maybe something amazing will happen. So,
another
you
way.
guys make pretty compelling arguments. Go ahead, Gordon. You were saying something.
Yeah, I mean, the other way you can go about it, which is how I do a lot of my photography, is, I appreciate this idea of, being forced to take a picture every day. But what you could do instead is force yourself to cover an event instead. This could be a huge event like a concert, or, as Trey and I did a few months ago, one of the space shuttle launches. Or it could be something really small, like, hey, it's full moon in a couple of days' time. But the important thing that's consistent amongst all of these events is that the event doesn't wait for you. It's going to take place whether you're there or not, whether you have the muse or not, or the inspiration or not. You've got to go there and make the best of it. And that kind of forcing you into that situation, I find that works a lot better for me than having to think, oh no, I've got to take a picture every day. Instead, I'll say, right, I really want to get a picture of the moon behind a mountain, and that's going to happen in 2 days. So I'm going to make sure that I'm there however I feel, or I want to take this kind of situation. So I think that's kind of like an alternative way of forcing yourself to do it without waiting for the creative process to necessarily kick in.
See, I think I'm with you, Trey. I'm a perfect pot type of person. And I mean, I go through periods where I shoot a lot and I feel like I'm being productive, and then I will hit a bad day, and that bad day will affect me for weeks. And I know we had this discussion, you were in Seattle and you had a really couple of bad days, and it kind of demoralized you. And I think, what's important is to be able to get over that hump and to get to be productive again. Because at least for someone like myself, I'm a perfectionist, and every picture I take, I feel like it has to be perfect. And part of that is just the fact that we share these photos, and you get feedback, and for me that's the criticism is a little bit tough to take sometimes. And I know for beginners this is a huge problem, because they feel like their photos aren't good enough. And I think it's something I personally need to work on, but that we need to sort of help other people to share their photos and to not be scared of not having perfect pictures, because you really can. Like for me, I can spend a week just down in the dumps because I feel like none of my photos are good enough. But when I actually post one, everyone's like, oh, this is a great photo, and I sort of get that motivation back up. So yeah.
Well,
Lisa,
I know what you mean. Sometimes I do get demoralized. I feel like a 12-year-old emo kid on Live Blogger. But that comes and goes with time. Sorry, Gordon, I didn't mean to interrupt. What you were saying?
I was just saying, Lisa, when you're saying that you've got a photo you're not happy with, is it compositionally, artistically not happy with, or technically not happy with it. So I think one of the interesting things these days is that the equipment allows us to analyze it to such a technical degree. We're all looking at 100% on monitors and things and going, oh no, it's a little bit out of focus, or it's technically not quite right. I won't go ahead with it. But yet, if most of us were asked to name one of our favorite photos from 50 years ago, it was probably technically rubbish compared to what we're doing today. You know, it probably is slightly out of focus, or it's been processed badly, or it's not, it's kind of faded in some way, but it still has some sort of degree of charm that we really love about it. So I think these days maybe a lot of us are punishing ourselves or penalizing ourselves for taking photos that aren't technically perfect, when in fact they have a lot of other merit.
Yeah, for me, that's part of the problem. And I do a lot of post-processing as well. And I will perfect, if my image isn't perfect, I'll perfect it. Like if, I'll clone out people that I don't like, I will, and for me, the quality of light is the most important thing. So if I go out and the light isn't magical, I feel like, either I'm going to have to do a lot of post, or I'm not going to get, that magical image. And if you look at Trey's images, I mean, he gets these magical moments, and I feel like if I don't have the sun like bursting through the clouds, it's not going to be good enough.
Oh no!
One of the problems with the 365 thing is, though, it's only one a day. I mean, shouldn't it really be more like 50?
Yeah, that's Thomas's 365. Thomas's 365 is 365 every day.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's one of my.
Hey, talking about beginners, I want to ask Tom Anderson a question here, because Lisa and Thomas both alluded to this. We just can't help taking photos now, right? It just has become part of us. And at some point, when you become a photographer, you cross the Rubicon. And we're kind of far away from it now. It happened so long ago, we don't really remember how we crossed that Rubicon. But, Tom, I think, is right in the middle of it. He's becoming one of these people that can't help but take photos. So what's the experience been like for you, Tom?
It is really strange. Actually, just before this show, I was out shooting. I didn't want to come back and get on the computer. I wanted to stay out there shooting. And even this idea that some people mentioned of whether to do it every day, as I was driving home, at the same time I have this sort of lazy thing. I pulled over and took some shots, and then I'm driving and I see something that I think will be another good shot, and do I want to pull the car over or not? And of course, I'm happy that I did once I did it. So I'm having that little bit of laziness, even in the middle of the process, at the same time that I want to do it more than anything. I just arrived here in Vegas, and I kind of came here just to shoot the place because I was tired of stuff in my neighborhood back in LA. And so, I'm definitely having a range of things going on. And I mentioned this, I think, in a post, or maybe it was something I talked to Trey about, but, prior to even to meeting Trey and trying this at all, I kind of thought that I wasn't even really interested in taking photography or taking photos. In fact, I wasn't. I never did it. And what I realized is that I actually have such a critical sense of what is good and what's bad, that every time I'd ever taken photos on a little cheapy camera, I just didn't like what I saw, so I never wanted to do it. And I was the guy that didn't take photos at every party and every event, and it was really because I was so unsatisfied with the results. But once I started getting some things that I liked, then I really got hooked. So that's sort of what I think sort of pushed me over the edge from, reaching, this age in life and never doing it, to now it's really kind of the thing that's driving my everyday behavior. It's why I came to this city. It's what I did all day when I got here, and when we're done, I'm going to go down to the Strip and take photos of the lights and everything that's going on down there. So maybe that's a little bit of what I'm going through.
Tom, what are you going to shoot in Vegas?
What's that?
What are you going to shoot in Vegas? Do you got stuff picked out yet?
Yeah, today I just shot Red Rock Canyon, and I have a house out sort of in that area, and I thought it would be cool, especially to try and take photos of some things that people just don't expect when they think Vegas. But of course, I also want to go down to the Strip and do, all the things that you normally see. And actually, I made a connection here on Google Plus from someone that works at the M Casino, and I asked if I could come in and shoot there, because I think normally they'll tell you no and put the camera away if you show up with a tripod, and I've already got I don't know if it's a PR pass or they said yes I could come if they could use my photos. So this is great because I don't even know what I'm doing and they're already acting letting me come in. So I think I also have some friends that work at other casinos here, so I think I'm going to try and get those connections to actually get inside and shoot some of the great lounges and architecture and that sort of stuff inside. But tonight I'll probably just go down and shoot stuff on the Strip.
I shot the Cosmopolitan for 2 days before it opened, about 2 weeks before it opened.
Oh, awesome.
Which was awesome. But those balconies, if you can get up there on those balconies, they're great views. And of course, the top of the Eiffel Tower in Paris, too, is great. Great shots from up there.
Okay, yeah. Cosmo, I know they have that crazy $1 million chandelier they put together with all the lights coming through. That must be amazing.
I took a ton of shots of it. That was a fun shoot because it was empty. I got to shoot the entire casino empty, which is rare. So this was like 2 weeks before they opened. But those rooms, the balconies up high, you can get some great shots off those balconies. They're open air, so there's not very many open air balconies in Vegas. They don't like people to jump off. So
I'll try that. You should share the link for those photos while we're in this hangout.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the Cosmopolitan there.
Yeah, also put it in my stream if you don't mind, so everyone watching can see.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, if I can, I'd like to kind of piggyback off of something that Tom was saying that really kind of made me think. One of the things I think that's really important for, especially new photographers, but everybody I think as a photographer needs to be reminded that a lot of the times when we're creating photos, it's good to do it just for yourself. We shouldn't just create photos so that people say, ooh, ah. Of course we all love that. We love it when people say amazing things, give us great feedback. But if you're always doing it for yourself, even if people say bad things about it, then you're not, it's actually better. The people that critique your photos, when the right people give you good criticism and say, well, maybe you could have done this with, or think about this next time, you're going to learn a lot more. And, I've had people that I don't know say a few things. I did a silly zombie photo shoot at a friend's house a couple months ago. And one of the photos, I have a guy and he's all like this, and he's supposed to be a zombie, but his hands are like perfectly clean. And he's like, it's not believable. His hands are too clean. So the next day when I did basically the same shoot with different models, I brought in a whole bunch of mud and I muddied up their hands. And I think it really made the shot look a lot better. So we can learn, we learn a lot, even when it's people that we don't necessarily want to critique our photos. But I think it's important that we just create those photos for ourselves. I haven't created a work photo in probably a couple months. And I mean, it sounds odd. I actually have a lot of backlog, but I've been moving. I've had a lot of writing I've been doing. I've been creating a lot of photos, but they've just been very personal photos, trying to create landscapes and things that I don't necessarily photograph for stock, but things that I think would look beautiful hanging on my walls. And those are for me. They're not for anyone. They're not for people to look at and say, that's amazing, that's beautiful. I might use them in other methods, as in like teaching methods, but I didn't create them to make money off of them. I created them because I just wanted to make something beautiful.
Hey, Nicole, I know you got a skedaddle soon, and we were just about to jump in and have people give some tips, like a beginner tip and an advanced tip, because there's lots of beginners watching and there's veterans watching.
Sure.
But anyway, why don't you throw yours down, and then you can head out to your little soiree or whatever, you go eat Dutch chocolate ice cream in bed or whatever you got to go do.
All right. Well, I guess I've got one tip that I can really think of off the top of my head here is when you're I do a lot of photographing from a tripod. I do a lot of food photography, and I've been doing a lot of like landscape type photography. And one of the things that I'm really, I guess I'd call myself a focus snob, because I want my images to be tack sharp. I want the right part of my image to be as technically perfect as possible. And that's just kind of a weird thing. That's one of my things. And so what I do to get that is I use live view on my camera. So if you have a camera with live view, you can go into live view, and then you can use your zoom buttons, and you can zoom way in, probably about 100% to the spot that you want focused, and then just switch into manual mode, and you can just get that spot just perfectly in focus basically. So I do that all the time. Probably every time I'm shooting. If I'm on a tripod, that's how I'm focusing my images.
Nicole, that was my tip.
Oh!
The same tip.
Uh-oh, we're in trouble now.
Gordon, you know you have 5 million tips at your disposal.
Yeah, but that was the best one by far. I'm going to go.
All right, Nicole. Well, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks. I'll probably stick around for a little bit, but I'll drop on.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Can I ask Nicole something before she goes?
Of course.
So with food photography, I haven't done a lot of food photography, but what kind of lighting do you use? Do you use continuous lighting or strobes or natural light?
Well, I definitely prefer to use a God-given natural light. You know, it's pretty much all backlit. But with that said, I think it's really important, if you really want to be a solid food photographer, to know how to photograph the same thing with any type of light, be it strobes, speed lights, any kind of continuous, you know, like on I don't know, like an LED light, a big LED light. Light is light. You know, if you have daylight balanced light, light is light is light. So, but knowing how to do that is really important, because you could be in a situation where you don't necessarily have beautiful light coming through a window, or it's nighttime, or you're in a part of the world where it's just, you know, whatever the situation is. If you have the skills of lighting food with a strobe, you know, you have nice diffusers, then you're going to get basically the same results. And I've actually written some posts on this on my blog, showing how I lit things, you know, and trying to make strobe light look as natural as possible. And it's definitely possible. But for the most part, when I'm shooting, I'm usually just doing it. I have a little, I don't know if you can see all of my, those are a lot of my props that I use for my food photography. And just in the corner there, I have these huge windows on like one whole side of my my loft here. And I just do all my shooting with the light that's coming through the windows. So I try and time everything so it's in the middle of the day, just because it's easy light. It's gorgeous and it's easy. So, and I don't have to drag out my equipment. But so.
Do you ever like bounce light back? So you have the backlit, or you?
I have it backlit, and then I will use, a lot of times I'll use like just like white foam boards, and I'll just kind of, you know, I'll take a white foam board and, you know, let's see, you know, I have it and I'll kind of like fold it like this, you know, so then I'll just kind of stick it down and prop it up to just bounce light back in. Sometimes I'll have a handheld reflector to bounce just a little bit more light in the front. By the way, all of these are mentioned in my food photography. So no, I use a lot of light to go. Yeah, I use reflectors, cards. Sometimes I use black cards to block light from behind. It really depends on the setup, but I do.
Yeah, those are great tips, because so many people, like, let's face it, like 90% of the internet are sharing food photos,
Mm-hmm.
and let's face it, like 89% of those are crappy. So, you know, that's a really good tip, is if you can put your food like in front of a window or get some light on it, it's not going to look like, you know, a garbled massive noodle.
It's not going to look like a microwave Salisbury steak.
The thing about photography is, if you have beautiful light, you can make pretty much anything look beautiful. That's kind of my philosophy, at least.
I'm starting to get kind of hungry now with all this talk.
Yeah.
Well, Trey, why don't you show that food photo? I think I gave you a food photo. Do you have that?
Yes, let me pull that up here. Well, while I'm pulling this up and sharing my screen, Lisa, why don't you lay down your 2 tips for us?
Put on the spot here. Well, I think that my main tip was going to be just perseverance. And I wrote this post on Google Plus about sort of, basically I took this shot of the Santa Monica Piers, and the shot was, the only reason I succeeded at the photo is because I persevered. And I think a lot of beginners don't spend the amount of time getting to, one, get to know their camera, how to use their camera, like reading the manuals or figuring out how, like, what all these crazy settings are about, and putting the actual time in, like the manpower. Like, you have to put in so much time to become a good photographer. So I guess my tip in a nutshell is just persevere and stick to it, and don't give up when you think you're not getting the results that you want to. Just put more time in. It's not something that's wrong with you. It's just, you've got to put in the time. You look at how many shots Thomas Hawk takes, and he's taking photos all the time. So if you want to get a great shot, you really have to put the time in.
Thank you, Lisa. So I've got my screen shared here. Can you guys see this this typical dinner at Nicole's house?
Looks delicious.
Well, here's the first question, Nicole. Yeah, do you make it? That's the big question.
Yes.
Do you make
this?
Yes,
I do. I actually do. I got into food photography because I love to cook, and I just kind of integrated it with my stock photography. So I typically just do things for myself, just like any foodie and food, any food blogger would do. They cook the food and then they photograph it. And this actually, I guess the story behind this dish was I had the food. I had no intention of photographing it, but as I was cooking it, or maybe as I was plotting how I was going to cook it, I was like, well, I could make it look really beautiful. So I just decided to cook it for dinner and photograph it right before I ate it. And I kind of jokingly called it the Last Supper, because I just moved to Seattle from Utah, and it was the last food photograph that I created in my living room in my apartment out there. So, and this was again a really basic setup. And I actually, I could probably link the behind the scenes post to my Google Plus page if people are interested in seeing my setup for the shot. But
yeah,
pretty simple.
Hey, let me ask Chi something. Hey, Chi Chu, you have sort of an edible-centric name. That's not why I'm asking you this question, though. What is there a way to force my screen on? So, because like when Nicole starts talking, it'll switch to her screen. But I kind of wanted people to look at this picture of her steak while she's talking about it. Is that possible? Oh, you did. Okay, good.
That's a good-looking steak.
Okay. Thanks, Chi. You want to talk about your other photos you sent me before you leave, Nicole?
Yeah, that'd be a great way to.
Okay. Here's a lovely one.
Yeah, this would be considered a photograph that I created just for myself. I actually went out to these lavender fields out in, I think it was Mona, Utah. I think that's the right place. And it was I had this almost this exact photograph in my mind. This is like one of those pre-visualization things. I was like, I want to get a photograph with purple lavender fields and pink sky, because I knew what the sunset was going to be. And I was pretty much done shooting, and I looked up and I was like, hey, there's my shot. So I set my camera up again and I photographed it, and it was this is my favorite one from that series. So, and yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's just ridiculous. It's wonderful. Okay, and here is your third one. This
I guess what you call like a cliche stock photograph. That's actually my dad. When I went to visit about a year ago, he works at he used to be a utility lineman, and he works at a community college, and teaches it. So he modeled for me, and I set up a couple lights and used a little bit of natural light in the background, but just got a nice, kind of a nice stocky, cheesy photograph of him smiling. So.
Oh, that's nice. That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. I'm going to go ahead and unshare my desktop here, as everyone looks deeply into all my favorites and shortcuts and everything. Isn't that funny? Whenever anyone shares their desktop, all you do is you just look to the corners to see what else they have going on. Hey, Keith, do you have a few tips? You just finished this big photo walk in Disney. Did you maybe have some tips for some beginners?
I have one tip. Don't feel rushed. Because when I was doing the photo walk, and of course I was doing it in Disney World, I was very conscious of the fact that there's a crowded area and things like that. And I rushed at least 2 photos. I think would have came out very well if I had not rushed them and made some mistakes.
Yeah, that's always a good tip. Hello, Robert Scoble. Looks like you've joined the party. How are you doing? Scoble, can you hear us? Over. Google Plus calling Scoble. Over.
Scobleizer, where are you?
Look, we got to give the guy a break. He's not very good at technology.
He's good.
While he gets his act together, let's ask Thomas. Thomas, give us your beginner tip and your advanced tip.
Okay, so my beginner tip would be really just to take a lot of photos, to overshoot everything. I mean, not to go too crazy, but you know, I think sometimes people spend so much time and they go out and they take 20 shots and they realize that they had a great scene. They had a great scene there, but one thing is wrong. Share. Can you guys see that? These Roscoe Luxes. So these are gels, and I don't know if anybody here has done much light painting, but these are great. These Roscoe Luxes, you can get them. They sell them on the internet. This is just a sampler pack. I like the bigger packs that are like these are 6 by 6 inches, and you can cut these things out and put them inside of flashlights for gels, and then do light painting. You put your tripod out, put your camera up on it. It's especially great for abandoned places, but really all kinds of things. And you go out and you set, you know, 30, 40, 50-second exposure, and then you use the flashlight with one of these gels inside of it. You know, this thing has about 100 different colors. You know, and these things are, this one someone just gave me for free, but you can buy them online. They're really cheap. You know, you got your blues here, and you can get all these different colors. You can see where I cut out, there's a hole in this one here, where I cut it out and put it right on top of a mag light. And then you can light paint with these guys. So it's a fun little, cheap little way to put color into a scene when you do light painting.
You can also use those gels. I actually cut them out and then I put them inside, like for flashes. So you can use, so say you're shooting indoors in like a, you know, fluorescent environment and you want to counter that with like a green gel, or like lots of people always think flashlight blows them out and they want to look more tanned. Maybe they haven't been to like the tanning salon. So I put like the orange ones in like the CTOs in like an Omni Bounce, like an Omni Bounce flash, and then I'll stick those in. So they're really useful and they're really cheap to buy. You can even buy like really small packs that work well with flashes, but they're really useful to have around.
Yeah, B&H sells a small pack, I think for like $5, but I like these bigger, these 6 by 6 inches ones, but there's, you know, there's probably 100 different colors in here. And you just cut them out and put them on your flashlight. And, but yeah, flashes, whatever, you know, it really can change. See, I'm all orange now. Can everybody see that?
You look so tan.
Yeah. not as tan as Trey, though. Trey's the tannest guy alive.
No, it sounds like you were wrestling a bear on top of the mic there. How's it going? Hey, Erica. Erica, you joined the Hangout. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Where are you hanging out today?
My living room.
Oh, what city is your living room in?
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay. Hey, you're a photographer, yes?
Yeah.
What kind of stuff do you like to do?
I do a lot of macro or whatever I can get my hands on, really.
Okay, well, put a link to your work in not just here in the Hangout, because only 9 people will see it, but if you put it out in the main thread, then tens of thousands of people will be able to see your work. Hello, Robert Scoble. You've jumped in. How are you?
Really good, man.
Scobalizer!
It's been a long week.
Hey, Robert's in.
So Robert sent me a note beforehand, and he said, I don't think I can join you guys because I'm babysitting tonight. And I told him that I said that my wife says it's not called babysitting if it's your own kids.
Yeah, well, after this week, I have to go and play with my kids. So I just want to somebody at Google give me a forced hangout feature so I could jump in here.
All right.
Waiting in line, which is sort of like cheating, but
no, it's okay. Yeah, we have 11 people along the bottom now, so this is fantastic. Well, we're going around giving kind of beginner and advanced tips, and so maybe you could think of some here while we're rounding it out. I guess we're not going in any particular order, but it's my turn, so I'll give mine. So my beginner tip is a little bit like Thomas's, although it's kind of different. And I like to tell people to stay away from critiques early on because really most people that give critiques on the internet are incompetent and you shouldn't really listen to them because you can't ever tell the difference between a good critique and a bad critique because they're all equally weighted. And it will really confuse you if you try to get feedback from all these people, and you'll end up, designing your art by committee if you're just trying to satisfy the highest number of people. And internally, every person knows really what is beautiful. That's sort of programmed deep into your DNA. So if you go out and take a bunch of shots, let's say you go out for the evening and you take 100 shots, when you get back, just try to choose the best 3 or 4. You can definitely do that. And if you do that time and time again, eventually you will arrive at something that's beautiful, at something that's very much your own. And you can do this without any critiques. You can do this just by finding this beauty within your own shots. So that's sort of my beginner tip. My advanced tip is going to make all the geeks in here so jealous. This thing is awesome. Sounds like somebody has some feedback. That's you, Scopel. I just muted you. Okay, this is my advanced trick. This thing is awesome.com. It is it's a Pegasus Thunderbolt drive, and it holds 12 terabytes. And it's basically like having a 12 terabyte SSD connected to my computer. Forever, I've had to have these Drobos and extra drives, and my Lightroom catalog's been spread out across multiple drives, and it's been a real problem. But now that it's connected to this, it's like having, 250,000 photos on an SSD immediately there and available. I got this through the Apple Store. They didn't give it to me anything. I bought it. It's a little pricey, but anyway, if you really want to have fast, it's this version is $2,000.
I know I brought it in. I had to have.
Oh, Erica's having some sort of marital dispute. It sounds like. Mute her before. We're having a little Sally Jesse Raphael moment here in square number 2. But she's muted now while she goes to counseling. But anyway, that's my big tip. It's awesome. You got to get it. You got to get it, Thomas. You'll love it.
Yeah, I did.
It's huge. It's fantastic.
Have you had any problems? Recently, I kind of did a similar thing where I took a bunch of my my Lightroom catalogs and put them all together onto one drive, and I found that really kind of slowed down. Have you seen that at all?
Well, my Lightroom catalog is already spread across 3 drives, and it's still pretty darn slow.
Yeah.
But the thing that I find that is the limiting factor is still the drive, the old school drive. It's just so dang slow, and it just takes forever to chug through my Lightroom. Even, you just see the gray thumbnail. It takes a while to resolve the real picture. When you zoom in on it, it takes even longer to resolve the full screen thing. I have fast computers. So once your Lightroom gets to a certain size, it's a real problem. My life has been changed since I've gone to this SSD. They used to say that if you double the speed of your RAM, it would make everything faster. But now I know that having an SSD plus a Thunderbolt drive, it's like everything is in RAM all the time.
Trey, the nice thing about those Thunderbolt drives too is you can daisy chain them, right? So if you need like 5 or 6 of those, you're good.
Not only can you daisy chain those, you can daisy chain monitors. So I have 2 Thunderbolt monitors, and you can daisy chain those through the drive itself if you have a Thunderbolt system, which I do.
Robert, it looks like you just picked up your second monitor at a garage sale or something. what happened there?
These are 2 brand. Actually, this is a label off the Tim Berners-Lee's Next computer that he wrote the World Wide Web on, and that's the full computer over there.
Oh, okay.
I was lucky enough to go and get to see that. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I have 3 monitors, and they're daisy chained through Thunderbolt. So the Thunderbolt connector is just this little tiny connector back here, and you can daisy chain those through the drive.
How many Thunderbolt things do you have daisy chained, Robert?
Right now 2, but I have one of those drives that Trey is talking about on order. So
you'll love it. It says on the Apple website that it takes 3 weeks to get to you, but I got mine in 2 days. So
I'm scared of that because I don't have the money to pay for it yet.
That's because they saw it was Trey Ratcliff ordering it.
Probably. I met one of the guys who works at Pegasus, and he's like, maybe we could get you a review unit. But I said, no, I'm going to buy my own. I don't want to return my hard drive.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Hey, Gordon,
I'm
we're
gonna
about
have
to come
leave,
to you.
Trey, so
Yeah.
Can I just jump in with one of my little tricks?
Absolutely, go for it.
One of the best things I ever did was get some monitors that have a big light source or some lights, and that makes really beautiful photos. These lights are $300 at Keeble and Shuckett, so you could probably buy them cheaper online, but most beginners don't try to play with light. And when you start getting your photography from when you're just snapping pictures to when you're starting to think about painting with light, that's when you take a step up in your photography.
That's a good tip. Also, that light makes you look even whiter online than you are in real life.
Very tasty, huh?
You
need to gel that sucker with some CTO.
Well, now you're going up the stack of advanced tips, but the first tip is just start playing with light and start learning what it does to your face and how to arrange them and whatnot.
Well, hey, go ahead and tell people real fast, Robert, your story about, you used to work in a photography store, and this was your life a long time ago. People don't know that about you.
Back in the 80s when we actually had film cameras. Wow. No, I helped manage LZ Premiums, which was a discount camera store in San Jose, and was sold a lot of cameras. I sold one of the first autofocus cameras in Silicon Valley, which was a lot of fun. And I watched the camera industry through. I started leaving right about when it started going digital. I was at the PMA show, which is the big Photo Marketing Association show in Las Vegas, and I was in the Kodak booth when the first year they were showing off digital printers. And it's amazing too to think back. That printer was about $45,000 if I remember right. Steve Wozniak actually bought one back in '89. And it was $40,000. And he had a 400 megabyte RAM disk, which was also about $40,000. And today, of course, you have more RAM on your iPhone. And a $70 printer does a better job today than that $40,000 printer. So I always say, if you can't afford something today, just stay alive a few years, because it'll probably come down in price quite a bit.
Yeah. What was that first autofocus camera? Was it a Minolta Maxim?
Yeah. And I remember having lots of fights with professionals who would come in and say, I'll never use an autofocus camera. I'll always be able to manually focus faster and better than that thing can. And I said, bullshit. And I knew, because I had taken it out the first day and shot with it. And even though it was very slow compared to the Canons or Nikons of today, it was amazing to watch the focus plane go and stop. And I'm not that good. I mean, I was pretty good at a manual focus, but I'm not that good. I can't just get the focus to stop. And I was saying, this is something good. You got to try it out. And sure enough, a few years later, I saw lots of Canons on the sidelines at the Super Bowl, and a lot of those guys who fought with me actually are now using Canon or Nikon equipment, with autofocus. And it's an important lesson that I've heard over and over again through my journey through life, that there's a lot of resistance to new things. People don't like changing, and but generally the new thing tends out winning.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thanks for popping in, Robert.
Thanks.
Go back to your family life now. Okay, see ya.
Thanks.
We're about to go to Gordon. And Gordon, when we do your tips, I also want you to tell us about something awesome that's happening on Camera Labs, or tell us about one of these new cameras or stuff. But before you, I want to ask Tom. I know I didn't ask you to prepare any tips or anything, and I know you feel like you're just getting started, but do you have something you feel like you could share with other beginners that might be kind of just getting their feet wet?
I actually do. I think just going somewhere that's really cool, it's just so much easier, because I had the good fortune of really trying to take my first photo at Burning Man. And and Trey had made some comments while we were there that this was just like photo overload, and I didn't really know what he was saying. But then we went to China, and we were in this incredible place, and we were just taking stuff. And it's kind of like, even if you're terrible, the photos come out looking good because you're in front of these amazing things. And then once I came back to LA and I kind of just walked around my neighborhood, I just couldn't find everything I shot I just thought looked horrible. So I think really when you're starting out, if you just go to something that's just amazing looking, you're gonna feel excited about your first couple of photos, which I think is really key to get you to want to do more.
All right, good one. Gordon.
Right.
Let us have it, Gordon. You can't beat my advanced tip for that giant Thunderbolt drive.
That's what you think, Trey, but down here... No, I don't. I'm going to build upon something that Robert said, which is, I have another website called DSLRtips.com where I do DSLR tips, tutorials on using your DSLR or any kind of camera with manual controls or more sophisticated controls. And I put a lot of these tutorials on YouTube, and what I always say at the end of these tutorials is, once you played around with the white balance or with manual exposures or with manual anything, then put your camera back to program or auto or some kind of semi-automatic mode, because you will forget to do this, and then you'll suddenly see your kid do the perfect expression. You'll see Michael Jackson, he's actually alive, he's outside your window right now, or there's a bear, it's just jumped out of a tree. And you'll take that picture and then think, oh, I was at 3200 ISO and on some bizarre setting. And there's this kind of snobbery about having to master manual controls. I would say to any beginners out there, my beginner's tip is don't feel bad about the auto modes. Auto modes are fantastic. They let you react very quickly to situations. And as Lisa was saying about, looking for perfect lights, why waste time mucking about with your settings when, your light's fading, the moment's passing? That's the most important thing, rather than saying, oh, yes, I mastered the manual mode, I mastered this setting. Yes, it's fun if you've got time and if you're a technical, geeky kind of guy. And I am a technical, geeky kind of guy. I loved, learning about photography and learning how to use the manual mode, but you don't need to. It's not a rite of passage. People won't think less of you if you can't shoot in manual. Let your photos speak for yourself. And if you took them in auto mode, brilliant. Who cares? That's my beginner's tip.
That's a very good one. Hey, let me welcome our new intern here, just popped in. Hello, Hermine? Oh, you're muted. You're muted. Over. I think Chi muted you when you came in.
No, it's absolutely fine. It's Ermine. Thanks for asking.
Oh, sure. Keith invited you in. Yes, he saw you in the thread and invited you in here.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good. Are you a photographer?
I am not. My daughter's more so, so I'm inspired by seeing all of you. This is wild.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for coming in. We're just now getting to Gordon's advanced tip. Okay, lay it on us, Gordon.
Yeah, my more advanced tip is, again, there's this kind of hangover from the old days of film photography, which I should add wasn't also correct back then either, which is the f8 is some magical aperture for all lenses that allows them all to perform better than any other setting. That is not the case. There is a sweet spot for every lens, but it's different for every lens. So what I'd recommend, anybody who's really into ultimate sharpness, and Nicole did a great tip earlier, which I would like to reiterate, which is don't be afraid of live view. Don't be a snob about having to use the viewfinder all the time. If you're going to be doing static tripod-based photography, fire up live view, zoom in on that image, because what you're looking at is what's coming from the sensor. That is what you're going to be recording. So if it's in focus on the sensor, it's in focus, and you'll bypass a lot of back focusing, front focusing errors with lenses. It solves a lot of problems, as long as your subject's not moving. But what I would also say, if you have time, try putting your camera into aperture priority and taking a picture at every F number, from wide open to fully closed down. Then do a bit of pixel peeping when you get home at your own leisure, and have a look at and see which picture looks sharpest to you. Now, what you're looking at here is not depth of field. Obviously, as you get bigger F numbers and that aperture is shrinking down, then the depth of field is going to get bigger. You're not looking at that in these pictures. What I want you to look at is the thing that you're actually focused on. How sharp and crisp is that? And you will find that it will probably be at its crispest around 2 stops from the maximum aperture. So if your lens is f4, is the maximum aperture, then yeah, f8 could be a sweet spot for it. But if you're using a 50mm f1.8 or 1.4 lens, then you might find that your sweet spot for sharpness is f4 or even f2.8. And by closing it down to f8, you might actually, especially with a smaller, very high-resolution sensor, you might be getting into the realms of something called diffraction, where the actual image actually begins to get a bit softer. It's an optical problem. And people are just blindly closing their apertures down to f8, f11, assuming that it's going to produce the best result. It will produce a larger depth of field, but if you're after the crispest result, it might be a smaller setting. So there is no magic F number for everybody or for every lens. Put the lens on, try it at every setting, and judge it for yourself. Another great way of doing that easily is if you've got a nice landscape shot where everything is effectively at infinity, so you're bypassing depth of field. It doesn't matter what the depth of field is. We've got some fantastic mountains around Queenstown where if you're taking a picture from the top with a wide-angle lens and everything's in focus, it doesn't matter what aperture you're using. With those, take the picture at every aperture setting and then look at the file sizes of your JPEGs, because the more detail there is, the less the JPEG compression engine will be able to shrink it. So generally, the biggest file will be the sharpest one. And that can be a really quick way of narrowing down what your best aperture setting is. And again, if you're using a bright lens, it could be around f4. Don't assume f8 is the way forward. That's my advanced tip.
That's great. That's great, Gordon. You have all these incredible videos on Camera Labs too that I recommend people watch, because you're so good at communicating this hardware stuff. I know a little bit about hardware, but whenever I watch you talk about it, I feel like I know nothing, because you go into the nth degree on detail and stuff. It's really smart. Let me ask you about this new Nikon camera.
Yeah.
In a previous hangout, you started to convince me that the future is one without DSLRs, that we're all moving to this new style of body without this Da Vinci-esque mechanical mirror that pops up and down inside. And I guess Nikon's first entree into this has been announced. Tell us all about this thing, and both the technical stuff and why all of us might be using this in the future. Well,
this kind of concept of a mirrorless body was kind of pioneered by Panasonic and Olympus with Micro Four Thirds, and what they came up with was the idea of using a DSLR-size sensor. So you've got DSLR quality, putting a lens mount on it, so you have the flexibility of interchangeable lenses, but removing the actual mirror that bounces up and down and the optical viewfinder to make the cameras much smaller. So you still get the same quality, you still get the same flexibility, but a smaller, lighter camera. So that kind of like covers the basis for loads of people. You're not compromising on quality, but you do get the nice small size. Because if your camera's too big and heavy, you leave it at home. I do that all the time. Now, Nikon did a really interesting thing, and I should say, again, as probably the only European here, I say Nikon, not Nikon. Don't bite my head off. What Nikon did, everyone's been anticipating their first mirrorless their first mirrorless camera, and as soon as it was announced, this is the Nikon One system with a new CX lens mount. The first thing everyone did was look at the sensor size, and they went, "Oh no, it's tiny. It's not as big as APS-C. It's not as big as the sensors that you get in a normal DSLR. Oh no, it's not even as big as Micro Four Thirds. It's dead on arrival. This is a disaster. Forget it. Nikon's blown it." And you know, the forums were just awash with people going, "Nikon, what were you thinking of? Why didn't you put a nice big sensor in?" And for me, as a techie, I was a little bit disappointed they didn't put an APS-C sensor in it. But you've got to look at the reasons why they didn't do that. They're trying to do something different. And the funny thing is they will have done their focus groups. And we have focus groups all the time when we talk to our non-techie friends. Or, you know, when I talk to my mum or my sister or anyone else, the first thing they say about their photos which have gone wrong, they don't say, "Oh, you know what, Gordon? There's so much noise at 1600 ISO. I wish it was a cleaner signal from that sensor." You know, they don't have that. They don't have that conversation with their parents or, you know, their friends. What they say is, "Oh no, I didn't manage to capture the moment. My kid was doing this amazing smile, and I took the picture, and 3 seconds later, when it actually took the picture, the moment had gone, or it was slightly out of focus. And why wasn't it?" That's the thing they're bothered about. And what Nikon have done, or what they claim to have done, is produced the world's fastest autofocus system. And better than that, they've got this system which actually starts taking pictures and or video before you take your picture and continues a bit afterwards. So it does it as you are pressing down the shutter release button. The idea of this is that you take your picture and it shows it on the screen. It says, "Hey, here's your picture. Here's the picture you took. But by the way, I also took the liberty of taking 10 pictures just before and another 10 just after. Oh, and a bit of HD video as well. Would you like them? If you don't, that's cool. Delete them, throw them away, it doesn't matter. But if you do like them, here they are. And you know what? Here's one where people aren't blinking. Here's one where they are looking a bit more relaxed. And for me, a lot of these concepts are actually a lot more powerful than a camera with a sensor that produces the lowest noise images. Sure, the physics behind it is that a small sensor, unless they reinvent the laws of physics, is not going to be as clean as a big sensor. But this sensor is bigger than that in a point and shoot. So for me, if the Nikon 1 cameras can produce, are, as they promised, some of the most responsive cameras around, that they maximize your chances of getting good shots, particularly of kids or in party environments, and the pictures are better quality than a point and shoot in terms of noise, then hey, they've got a winner. I mean, I've not tested it yet. It's only just coming out, so maybe it'll suck in real life. Maybe it will fulfill those things, but I really admire them for trying something different. And it's really sad that maybe a lot of people have been so technically obsessed that a lot of people kind of dismissed it simply because it didn't have an APS-C sensor, which is the sensor that you get in most DSLRs, just because it was a bit smaller. And I've actually got, if you go to cameralabs.com, I got a preview of it, and I created a diagram that shows the different sensor sizes, so you can see where it fits in. It's smaller than the DSLR sensor, but bigger than the point and shoot. But for me, the focusing and the response is what's going to be important about this camera. And who knows, it could be like the best-selling camera this Christmas, because it could be the party camera.
We need all new lenses for this new camera style, right?
Yeah, yes and no. Like all of these cameras that preceded it, by getting rid of the mirror, the distance between the lens mount and the sensor is much smaller. So if you were to be able to put a normal lens on it, it would be focusing behind the back of the camera.
Right.
Which is no good. But what they all do is produce adapters that basically shift an older legacy lens, forward a bit, so that it will focus and it will work. So you can get an adapter that will let it use other lenses.
Well, those adapters make your
lose the charm of the size, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no. The aperture would still be the same, and what you would notice is because the sensor is smaller, everything would be multiplied by 2.7 times instead of 1.5 times. So you would need a really wide lens to get any kind of wide-angle coverage. But again, it kind of loses the charm if you put a big old lens on it. You really want to put on the new little lenses. So yes, it's a new system, but I really can't wait to see how this autofocusing and the response works in real life, because if it is a lot faster than a traditional camera, then yeah, it's not going to replace my DSLR or for shooting movies and stuff. I'll still be using bigger cameras for certain jobs. But when you go to parties and you're shooting your friends or you're shooting kids and things, anything that can take up to 60 full resolution images a second. 60, not 5 or 10 or 12, 60. I mean, that's unbelievable. You are going to capture the moment with that. That to me is an amazing technology. So I think, forget the fact that it doesn't have a massive sensor and embrace the fact that it could be the fastest, most responsive with the highest hit rate. I'm very excited about it. Have I convinced any of you yet?
Gordon, it's specifically a party camera?
No. I'm calling it that because I think it's the thing that it will really shine at are moving subjects and tricky subjects, like people who aren't posing as carefully as you'd like them to. If you're shooting, shoot landscapes fine, but there the advantage isn't so great because your landscape doesn't need 60 frames a second and a little clip of video before and after. It's really taking pictures of people, I think. People in a casual environment, that's where I really see it shining.
Interesting. Well, I can't wait to see your full review on it when it comes out. I think it's... do you think Canon will come out with something comparable?
Well, this is the big question, is that every time, Panasonic and Olympus keep coming out with them, and of course Sony came out with the NEX last year, and their new NEX models, like the NEX7, look fantastic. They're going to be big sellers this Christmas. And now Nikon have done it, and of course Pentax have done it, Samsung have done it. When's Canon going to do it? And every time, because most of the camera manufacturers announce new products, say, twice a year, and when these dates roll around, everyone's like, this is going to be it. This is the year. This is the D400 year, the D4X year. This is when Canon's going to do a new 1D, 5D Mark III, and it never happens. And we're all really disappointed. They announce a new point and shoot or something instead. So, I don't know. Canon have to. Really, they have to.
Hey, Gordon,
but yet they don't seem to be in any hurry.
Gordon, not to get you off track this camera, but when is Canon going to come out with that 5D Mark III, and what's going to be on that thing?
Well, as we all know, there's an announcement coming up or maybe we don't all know that, there is an announcement coming up, a video-based announcement, a product that's optimized for video. Everyone thinks or hopes it's going to be a 5D Mark III, but really, I reckon it's probably a professional movie camera.
And when is that coming? When is that announcement coming?
I think it's beginning of November.
In November.
I think it's November the 4th. But if you go to sites like Canon Rumors and stuff like that, they've got all the kind of latest gossip. But I don't think that will be the 5D3. The thing is the earthquake in Japan put everything back. I think if everything was at their normal schedule, it should be announced about now. But because of all that, it might be early next year. But remember the Olympics. You know, the Olympics is the time when Canon and Nikon go, hey, look at our new top of the range DSLR. Normally a 1D or like a D3, D4X type body. So we're going to see there's got to be some new super high-end bodies in the next 6 months because they want to get them to the Olympics. That happens every 4 years. So maybe they'll save the 5D3 for that. I would say definitely in 6 months. Anywhere between 0 and 6 months.
Okay, we've got it on record.
Hey, let's start sharing some photos that we've made. Is that okay, Gordon?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. Let's. Hey, Thomas, do you want to go first? You're gonna have to send me a link to your work, and I'm gonna share my desktop here.
Well, yeah. Why don't you let somebody else go first, and I'll send you the link in the chat right now. Okay, here's two I can give you.
Are you there, Lisa? Over. Can you hear me?
I am. I'm here. Yes.
Okay. Let's go with this. Let's go with this doe-eyed Caucasian here. Tell us all about this.
Well, this was my very first photo taken with my 5D Mark II, and before that, I've actually only been shooting for about 4 years, and for the first 2 years, I shot on the Canon XTI Rebels, so the sort of the cheapest entry level, and so this was my first sort of portrait session with like a brand new expensive camera, and I was just completely blown away by the sharpness and just how beautiful this shot turned out. And for me, I guess this shot is it just demonstrates how really simple off-camera lighting can do so much for portrait work. In this portrait, I'm using one umbrella and one flash that's shot through an umbrella, and it's it creates such beautiful soft light, and it's perfect for shooting subjects like this.
What kind of lens was it?
This was the 85-1.8. So that was, at the time, I only had 2 lenses. So that was my sort of portrait go-to lens. And I shot really low. I think this is f2, probably f2 or 2.2 or something. And it was interesting, Gordon talking about, the sweet spot of your lens. And what I'd really love is like a website that actually did that for me and just told me, because I'm lazy and I don't want to go and like look it up.
I do that, Lisa. I do that.
Do you? Well, I will look it up.
Yeah, you need to visit cameralabs.com is your spot. All right, here's your next one. Tell us about this.
This is my perseverance shot, and I actually took my mom to Santa Monica on a sort of photo trip, and we were both out there shooting this exact same shot, and she has a Canon XSI, and she felt really sort of uncomfortable and just said, there's no way I can get this shot, I don't have a good camera, and she sort of gave up. And when I came back to the room, we looked through our photos, I looked through hers and I looked through mine, and I showed her my shot, and she said, wow, this is really great, like, I feel like I gave up too quickly. And so the next night we went back, and I actually shot with my iPhone, and she shot with hers. And she actually shot an amazing, amazing picture. And I've been trying to get her on Google Plus to share this photo, because honestly, it's as beautiful as my shot. And I think it really just demonstrates that it's all about just sticking to it and staying through. Like with this light, when we first got there, it wasn't really that great, but over time it sort of transformed into this beautiful purple. And I think with light, and especially with sunset, it's all about sort of sticking it out to the last moment. And it's generally when you're freezing your butt off and you're, you know, in this shot I was actually getting wet, my like up to my knees probably in water because my tripod was so close to the water. But it's those shots that are, you know, sort of worth it in the end. Like you come back, you're sandy and cold, and you have sand in bad places, but it's worth it.
I don't know what you mean by bad places, but let me ask you, Lisa, you know, there's this, I'm sure you think about color. You think about color probably as much as I do. We love us some color, but, you know, when you're at times like this, you kind of look at this color that's between purple and yellow, and it makes this transition. You can even move your eye up and down this 100 times, and you can't ever quite see where it happens. And have you ever thought about how this color in the middle, it doesn't really even have a name?
Yeah, I mean, actually, this is kind of. I remember seeing a purple color in that shot you did of the Eiffel Tower, that beautiful shot with the puddle, and you know, it's funny because I think both you and I get this a lot where people say, you know, are you photoshopping this color in? Or are you just painting it? Like, but this is exactly how it was, and I actually took an iPhone photo to prove it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, just like the color there seems so unreal, and
right,
yet,
yeah, up here, and it was all real.
That's exactly how it was.
I pointed the iPad at the sky so people could see that it was real. Yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, let's look at your next one. Is
Lisa, by the way, that's the best picture I've ever seen of the Santa Monica Pier. That is remarkable.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot.
I've shot that myself. I mean, it's wonderful. It's the best I've seen.
Well, thank you.
All right, let's look at this gal. Go ahead, Lisa.
So when I first started using strobes, I was actually really, really frightened of them. I didn't understand how they worked, and I was really intimidated by that sort of, you know, really technical aspect of photography, because I've always been sort of a just shoot by my eye and just kind of do whatever. And so when I first started shooting sort of models and actresses, and I really wanted to do some cool things with strobes, so I actually read Strobus' blog. I think it's strobus.blogspot.com, and he sort of gave me the confidence to try new things. And in this shot, I have a strobe that's right behind her head that's creating this sort of lens flare. So I have one flash that's here, and then I have another strobe that's right in front of her face that's being softened by a shoot-through umbrella. And I mean, there's just so many cool things you can do with strobes. And, you know, this was shot in my apartment. I didn't have much space. I just used the flash to create something cool. And I'm a huge fan of lens flare. I love it. And, you know, it might be distracting to some people, but I think you can just do so many cool things with it. And when you know, shoot with a flash sort of backlighting something and into your camera, that's where you get really like cool lens flare.
Yeah, me too. Do you get a lot of comments, a lot of snarky comments in your threads that say, when are you going to get rid of that lens flare and become professional?
I mean, honestly, yeah, I mean, I kind of alluded to this earlier about nasty commenters, but I mean, really, it's our art. I mean, we're artists, and this is what we're creating. And, you know, for me, lens flare is something that you can use to just create a little bit of magic in a shot that wasn't otherwise there. I mean, you see it so much in movies where they actually use sort of fake, you know, lens flare. There's even like a filter in Photoshop to create fake. So if you can create real lens flare, I just think I don't know, there's something special about it. And you'll see it in fashion magazines. Like, you know, if it's good enough for Vogue, it's good enough for Flickr.
Yeah, I love lens flare. It's like a colorful little magical gift that happens on your photo from time to time.
Yeah.
I think they're great. Okay, thanks, Lisa. And if you're getting sleepy, you can.
I'm getting a bit sleepy.
I got your little Skype message, so yeah, you can go get some bonbons and jump in bed.
Okay. I'm actually going to watch Game of Thrones, so I'm really
excited. Sweet Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, so I'm really excited. I've been just craving, like, I don't know if other people use movies as inspiration for photography, but I use, just the feel and the filters that they're using in movies to inspire like the post-production work that I do. So I'm always looking for something that's really inspirational.
David Lynch, he's good. David Lynch.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, every single movie.
Well,
Lisa, if you like lens flare, just see Star Trek by J.J. Abrams.
I know. Yeah, actually.
Or see anything by J.J. Abrams. Cool. All right. Well, Lisa, with your Game of Thrones announcement, you've just made millions of geeks excited that you watch nerdy stuff. So thanks for joining us very much.
Thank you so much. It was so lovely to listen to everyone, and obviously we could do this forever and ever and have amazing conversations, but thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you. Okay, so Thomas, you have some links for us to check out here?
Yeah, did you get the links I put in the chat room?
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go to your Plus stream here.
All right, so if you click on it, it goes in, like in Google Plus, you can click on it and it goes into a lightbox tray. It like blows up big.
Oh, I didn't know that. Amazing. Who did that? Okay, here we go. Can you guys see this?
And by the way, we have to credit, I think, Vincent Moe with that lightbox, I think.
Sweet, sweet Vincent Moe.
So these are two shots I took last night. So I'm going to share both of these two shots. Last night I went out shooting with 4 or 5 pals, with Chris Chabot from Google and Samir and Sly and Charlie and my friend Jay Goody and Joe. Anyways, on the way home, I convinced my friend Jay to drive. It's my car. And I stood up out of the sunroof on the Bay Bridge. So I was standing up, I don't know, maybe 3 feet out of the sunroof. And this is a wide-angle lens shooting while we're moving. And you can see that the cars are kind of in focus. And, of course, you get all the blur lines. And this is just, I think you have to try different things and experiment. I took probably 100 shots on the Bay Bridge on the way home, standing up in the car out of the sunroof with this wide-angle lens shooting down. And I love perspective, and this gives I had Jay drive in the center lane, and just kind of shot 100 shots, and this was the one I liked the best.
Yeah, it's amazing. Were you shooting in one hand and had a martini in the other?
Exactly, and well, no, I had the camera in one hand and a martini and a cigar in the other. No.
You just living large.
I know. Outside, we almost got pulled over because the police saw me like standing up out of the sunroof shooting pictures. But
yeah,
we did okay. But I think sometimes you have to think about how you can get interesting and unique shots. And I was happy with the way that turned out. It's you got all the blur and the motion blur and the speed and stuff like that.
Cool. Let's check out your other one here.
Yeah, so this other one I wanted to share, and that was because I got, for the first time I got a new lens in about 3 years. And we have Gordon on here. I think Gordon's still on here, isn't he? Is he Gordon still on here? There he is. Gordon's on here. So, Gordon, you know which lens this is, of course. This is the new, brand spanking new Canon 8 to 15 millimeter fisheye. And Gordon wrote one of the first reviews up on it. I just got this lens last week because I was on a waiting list for a month to get it. But 8 millimeters on a full frame sensor, you get a circle like this. You get you can't even get the full thing. But it's a fisheye, and these were 3 Marines. It's Fleet Week right now in San Francisco, so the Blue Angels are going to be flying over tomorrow, and so all the sailors and whatnot are out running around town. And we ran into these 3 guys, and I wanted to show off this new lens, the new 8 to 15 Canon fisheye. But also the other thing I wanted to point out is, sometimes you just want to get in people's faces and ask them, hey, can you take a picture? And at first these guys were kind of freaked out because I was about 2 inches from their nose, and they're like, what is this, a joke? I mean. And I convinced them that no, this is a serious lens, and I emailed the photo to the Marine in the middle there this morning because he wanted a copy of it. But I think sometimes you just have to interact with people and be bold and make friends with them really quickly, as fast as you can. And I really like the way this came out, and it's 3 American soldiers hanging out on shore leave.
Yeah, it's great. I love how all of us are pulling out these portfolio pieces to show off, and you're just pulling up 2 photos you took last night.
Yeah, it was a fun night last night. Good.
No, that's awesome. All right, thank you.
I'm really glad you got that lens. I can't wait to see some of the other stuff you do with it.
Oh, Gordon, I'm loving that lens. It's great. You know, I still have mixed feelings about it because it's a lot of money to spend on an oddball lens, but
yeah,
it's you know, and I'm afraid I might overdo it. People get sick of fisheye pictures, but it's a fun lens.
All right, cool. Let's look at some of your photos, Gordon, because I've got them up here and ready. You sent me a whole slew. By the way, we had Jeremy Coward on, but he dropped because he didn't have a mic. We can't have him talk about his photos, but this is a photo he took of Taylor Swift. We'll get him on another time once we get his mic working. He's a wonderful photographer. He does all kinds of amazing things, and I like him too because he does even more Photoshop than me, so he makes me look reserved. He's a great guy and a great photographer. So, Gordon, I have all these photos of yours. Where do you want me to start?
I want you to start with the one which starts with 1, which should be of the full moon. Can you see that
Full
one?
moon, here we go. Okay.
So we're going to do them in order if possible. I'm going to go through them pretty quick, but
Okay.
you can stop me at any point.
Okay.
Okay, now, a lot of people, one of the things I'm really into doing is taking pictures of the moon and the sun and some astro photos. And a lot of people like taking photos of the moon, but there's 2 things that you'll notice when you take pictures of the moon that kind of put people off. The first thing is that it's a lot smaller than it looks. And the second thing is it's a lot brighter than it looks. So the 2 things, if you're taking pictures of the moon, the 2 things you need to do are, first of all, use a much faster shutter speed and lower ISO than perhaps you anticipated, and also get the biggest lens you can if you wanted to kind of fill the frame. Now, this picture shows what you'll get if you're using a full-frame sensor with approximately 500mm focal length. So this is approximately what you'd get if you had like a 350mm on a crop frame. Now, the most important thing here, which I wanted to go into next, is Trey, zoom in on this. Let's make this image as big as you can. Now, what's the first thing you notice about this? There's no detail. There's no detail on it. Now, this is perfectly in focus. It's the full moon, and therein lies the problem. When people take a picture of the moon, they wait until it's full. I don't know why. Maybe it's some sort of werewolf madness. They take a picture. They'll be really careful about, waiting for the golden hour for their landscape pictures. They'll wait until the sun's about to set or rise, for these beautiful long shadows. But when they take a picture of the moon, they wait until it's full, which is effectively like taking pictures at noon, at daytime. You get no shadows, and it looks terrible. So, Trey, I want you to move on to picture number 2, if you could.
Wait, Trey, zoom in there, though. Is that Ron Guerin in the dune buggy?
It might be.
I think that's Ron Guerin in a dune buggy with a flag and a 6-pack of Pabst Blue Ribbon.
I see him. He's aiming at us and posting it on Google Plus at the same time. Where's number 2? I'm afraid. Is this number 2? No, that's
Nope.
10. Sorry. I'm going all out of order here. You should always name things 0, 1, 0, 2, 0. You know this, Gordon.
Oh, sorry. This is 2.
This is
Okay.
2. Go for it. Okay.
Now, this is the moon. This is obviously a half moon. Now, what I want you to do now, Trey, if possible, zoom in. Let's have a look at those craters at the top.
Let's.
Yeah. Look at that. Detail. Shadow detail. At last. And this is what you want to do, I think. I mean, by all means, take a picture of the full moon, but you won't see any shadows on it. You won't see any detail. So, my first advice for anyone taking pictures of the moon is to wait until it's anything other than full. And at the point, they call it the limb, at the point where you go from light to dark, that's where you get all the interesting stuff. So you'll see craters. If you go down to the bottom of that picture, Trey, you may even see some mountain ranges. And again, this is just taken with like a 300-400mm lens. If you've got a 70-300 and a camera with a high resolution, you can get some fantastic crops of the moon. The one thing I'd say in terms of exposure, shoot at 100 ISO and try shutter speeds of like 125th, 250th of a second. You'll be surprised how bright this thing is. Can you move on to picture number 3, Trey?
This one.
Yes. Okay. Now, this is an effect called Earthshine, which you may actually be able to see with your naked eye sometimes. Now, the moon there is about, well, the illuminated section there on the left is what you'd normally see with your eyes. If you really overexpose that picture, what you'll see is the rest of the moon illuminated by light reflected from the Earth. That's why it's called Earth shine. And you get this kind of eerie blue effect on the rest of the moon. And I kind of really like that. Cloud underneath it. And that was taken with probably well, now I look at it, maybe at about 200 millimeters. So you don't need a massive lens to get a nice picture of the moon. So consider overexposing for that Earth shine effect. Moving on to number 4, if you could, Trey.
Yes.
This is a total lunar eclipse. Now, eclipses are fantastic things to photograph, but it's easy to not know when they're happening. So if you're into eclipse photography, whether it's lunar or solar, there is one website you need to go to. It's called mysteryclipse.com. It's run by this guy from NASA called Fred Espenak. We'll put that on the stream. It's mysteryclipse.com. And that tells you all the dates of upcoming eclipses. It tells you exactly when they're going to be, where they're going to be, how long they're going to last, so you'll know exactly when they're going to be. And this is a total lunar eclipse just before totality. So, in fact, what you normally see with the naked eye there is the bit that's white at the top and overexposed. And the rest is this really eerie red. So that's a kind of longer exposure. And if you move on to the next picture, Trey, number 5.
Okay.
You can
so
see,
there's a bit of a lag between your request and the fulfillment of your request. There you go.
Faster, Trey, faster.
Yeah. You can't get the staff, Thomas, can you?
No, I love this.
So this is, you can get a really nice composite effect. The important thing here is, again, as all of you know, in every type of photography, if you're doing sports photography, portrait photography, don't wait and take the picture just at the moment it's going to happen. Take pictures before and after, because they're often more interesting. And in this case, with an eclipse, you'll get to see various partial phases as well as totality, and you can make really nice composite shots. Moving on to number 6, if you could, Trey. I'm not sure how well this one's going to come across in terms of compression, but this one shows what you can get if you point your camera up at the stars with a fairly normal lens at 1600 ISO and 30 seconds. Now, that 30 seconds is typically the longest exposure you can get without having to go to bulb and using a cable release. But it is worth doing. I would encourage everyone to point their cameras vertically upwards on a dark, clear night and just leave the shutter open for 30 seconds at the highest ISO and see what you get. I really got into astrophotography this way, and you can get some lovely shots. It's also nice to incorporate some foreground objects. If you go to shot number 7, Trey, this was actually taken in Zion Canyon, so it's nice and dark. But these trees were illuminated by some street lamps.
Wait, that's on the moon?
What? No, we're on number 7.
Okay.
Yeah. So this you could illuminate trees with a torch or with your car headlights. You know, you can be quite creative here and still get a kind of Milky Way shot in the background. I'm probably hogging a bit too much here, so I'm just going to do 2 more pictures. These are of a comet. I've got some quite good response from these on Google Plus recently. So this is picture 8. Have we got picture 8, Trey? Yes, we do.
Yes. What's up? Picture 8's up.
This is Comet McNaught, which was not a very bright comet in the Northern Hemisphere, but by the time it came down south, it thought, hey, this Southern Hemisphere is pretty cool. I'm going to put on a really good show. This was a few years ago, and it was amazing for several nights in a row. A lot of people think this is like a firework when you have a comet, that it's whizzing across the sky and this is an action shot. That's not the case. They actually are completely stationary to the naked eye. They don't appear to move. But what I really wanted to show you was the difference an exposure can make. So this was taken with the Canon 85mm 1.8, which was one of Lisa's favorite lenses. I love that lens as well for different reasons. It's incredibly sharp right up to the corners. This was at f2, 200 ISO, 5 seconds. Now I'd like you to go to the next picture, Trey, which is number 9. Okay, this is the same lens. This is the same magnification on the same night, just a couple of hours later. It's the same aperture, it's f2. I've gone up to 400 ISO. The important thing here is I've now done a minute long exposure. This is just over a minute. And look at how much is captured there. Now, when you want to do a long exposure for this sort of thing, it becomes a bit more advanced because the stars begin to trail. You get the effect of the Earth rotating, and as the Earth rotates, the stars begin to move, and they leave trails. It's like a blur. It's the same as any kind of blur. And then what you need is a special mounting that will actually follow the stars and track them, and that's when it gets a bit more complicated, you know, beyond 30 seconds. But I just really wanted to show the difference between these two pictures, the difference in exposure. Exactly the same lens, exactly the same aperture, and only about 2 hours apart. So this last one is what you can do if you've got a tracked mount. But the other one should show you that you can get some really nice pictures with a 30-second exposure. You can get some great shots of the moon with just a 300mm lens. Just try all those different exposure settings. Just experiment, and you can have a real good time with it. And if you're into eclipses, MrEclipse.com, fantastic website.
All right, there's a picture of you looking very sly.
Oh yeah, this is me in. Yeah, this is an example. Actually, this is me in Zambia in 2001 taking a picture of the total solar eclipse. Trey, if you move just down to some of those solar eclipse shots, they're like shots. Yeah, like number 10, shot number 10. That was taken with that equipment. And that was just that was a Canon 400mm lens. That was on a film body. That was on a Canon EOS 5 body. This was with like 100 ISO film. That was probably about an eighth of a second, and I wasn't using a tracked mount or anything. That was just, you can see the setup that I had there in that picture. That was just a kind of fairly basic lens on a basic camera on a normal tripod. And you know, you don't need exotic equipment to get some great astrophotos. So that's what I wanted to get across. I hope you enjoyed those pictures.
Gordon, we have to get you up in space with Ron Guerin.
Yeah. Oh, I keep asking him, Thomas. He doesn't return my calls.
Hop on up there. You've got the body of a young astronaut, right?
You never see me from the neck down, so you'll never know.
I've been telling people all night you're not wearing pants.
Well, we'll have to, on that bombshell, I'll need to, actually, genuinely, I need to go on that bombshell. It's about 5 p.m. here in New Zealand. I need to cook dinner for my family, so I hope you guys will excuse me.
Yeah, no, go ahead and leave. I'll go through my photos, and then we're going to critique some from that have been in the main thread. And but thank you for coming along, Gordon. It's been nice talking to you. You're always a fount of information.
Thanks for having me, Trey. It's been great fun, and it's lovely meeting those who I've not met and seeing those again who I've met before. It's been really good fun. I hope we can do this again soon.
Sure, cool. All right, let me. I'll share a few of mine and talk through them quickly here. This is a new one that I got at Burning Man just about a month ago or so. It was pretty late at night, probably around midnight, and midnight is one of the best times for photos out there. I find that I've got to have a tripod out there at this time because even though I use like a 1.4 lens on a D3S, it's still too dark for a lot of shots, even at 1.4. I can get the ISO high enough, and it's a little noisy, but still, I really prefer a tripod so I can take my time. In this case, I set the tripod down on the lowest level, and what I like is at the top of this, there's people sitting up there, but you can't quite tell if they're people or not, and they got a little bit blurred, and to me, sometimes having the impression of something is better than having the thing itself.
Wait, Trey, those red dots are people?
Yeah, up on top.
Wow.
Yeah, those are people that have climbed up there.
Jeez, that's cool.
Yeah, and this purple color in the background, it's all natural. There's sort of this alkaline dust that goes up and collects, and it gets mixed with all the light of Burning Man, which comes out purple, and all the different colors are mixed together. This is great. This is one of my favorite finds of 2011. This is a place in Paris that nobody goes to because everyone goes to all the top attractions, but this is the Museum of Natural History, the Museum of Evolution and this sort of thing, and they have all these amazing displays and creatures, and I don't know if I have the high res one here or not, but you can see all kinds of details on all the little animals. It's one of those photos that's cool on any level, no matter where you zoom in on. There's something interesting to see, and it was one of my favorite places. And I got in trouble for taking this shot. I didn't have permission, and they came to shut me down right after this. But at least I got this one off before time ran out. And here's the last one I'll show, and I'll kind of throw in a few unexpected tips here. And this is something that works for all landscape photography. And what's interesting is anthropologically, people like to see certain things in a photo, and it's tied to our kind of Pleistocene heritage. You know, we're not that far removed from the savannah. And whenever we look at a scene, first we want to see fresh water. That makes us happy. We want to be able to see plains and some grass or something low so we can know if there are any predators nearby. We'd like to see that there are some trees somewhere that we can go to for shelter or to hide from the weather. We'd like to see that there is some distance, maybe some mountains, so we can have some weather coming at us. We'd like to know, 30 minutes or a few hours ahead of time before weather is going to come at us. And the last thing we like to see, which this photo doesn't have, is a path, either a game trail or some kind of sign of human habitation. And I put up so many photos over the last few years on Flickr and the blog and everywhere, and I know that the more of those 5 elements a photo has in it, the more successful it is. And certainly nobody thinks about this, and I don't really think about it when I'm out on the scene either, but it's sort of an interesting thing to note. Okay, we back out of there and see who else is here. Let me turn
Trey, how many pictures did you take of Burning Man?
Oh, I took probably about 9,000 photos.
Wow, that's amazing. And how many did you, out of those 9,000, how many so far have you finished, and how many do you think you'll finish?
Well, I've gone through almost all of them, and I only have about 100 that I like, and only about 50 that I'll ever publish.
So 50 out of 9,000.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think you would go even crazier than I would there. Do you think you might go sometime?
I'm going next year, man, for sure, 100%. I'll be there. You're going next year, right?
I think I'll be there too. You'll go hog wild, and I don't really fit into any particular crowd there because there's the hippies and the druggies and the ravers, and I don't really fit into any of them. I just kind of run around and artistically capture it all.
I kind of think of you as like all 3 of those rolled into one.
Well, depending on the night and what kind of brownies I accidentally eat.
No, I really.
It's awesome, and it's basically this big group of sort of older hippies. And the guy whose RV I parked right by, he had this big tent that he built himself, and he was the camp shaman. So I'm not into drugs or anything, but if you ever wanted like the most amazing drugs, the best place to go at Burning Man would be to go to the biggest hippie camp of all time and visit the tent of the shaman. I mean, you go in there, there's no telling what you're going to come out with. That place is wild. Well, so go ahead and grab a few things for us to critique, Thomas. And, well, let me say hi to a few other people that popped in here. Let's say hi to Ali. Hey, Ali, how are you?
Hey, Trey, how you doing? Good seeing you again.
Good. You're, where are you hanging out?
I'm in Orlando, very close to Orlando.
All right. Let's say hi to Brian Aldridge. Hey, Brian, how are you? I can't hear you if you're talking. You might be muted.
I'm doing well. How you guys doing? Yep.
Good.
I unmuted myself.
Good. And Robert McGee, how are you doing, Robert?
Doing well, Trey. How are you?
Good. So if you guys are photographers, this goes with you, Erica. Feel free to put a link to your work in the chat and actually put it out in the main thread so everyone can check you out and see about you. Oh, I'm sorry, Robert Reddle. How are you? I think you're muted too. But anyway, the same goes for you. Feel free to put a link to your work there.
Thank you, fine. I'm here in Vienna, Austria.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Hello from Vienna. Yes, I
I'm
hear
from
you
Vienna,
now.
Austria, 6 a.m. at the moment, and I'm interested. As an IT guy for helping clients that do photography for storage and all those things. But you showed a nice device already, and I myself have behind me some old encyclopedias, 120 years old, and I'm making a reproduction photography, turning the pages quick and making screen photos with the keyboard with my feet that I'm very quick to to get in 20,000, 40,000 pages and then making OCR and everything.
That's what she said. Trey, I put those links in the thing if you want to.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, thanks for telling us, Robert. Put a link to your stuff so people can see more if they're interested. Okay. So I'm gonna click on this first link of yours. Is this from Billy Wilson?
This is Billy Wilson. Yeah, Billy Wilson.
Okay. So Thomas, you and I will kind of critique these a little bit. Do you want to start out with this one?
Well, I think what I like about this one actually is Billy's done a wonder. I mean, I always look for reflections. I don't know about you. I mean, obviously you do. I see reflections everywhere. That boat shot that you put, I think, was it yesterday with the boat?
Right.
Beautiful. I mean, I'm constantly on the lookout, and this is a quintessential reflection shot. Billy's got it pretty much right down the middle. And you've got the abstraction on the reflection, and you've got the more of the detail on the actual factory and the plant, and I think it looks great. The only thing I don't like is a little watermark down in the right corner, but you know, that's me. I hate watermarks.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think any watermark is bad, and whenever it starts to look a little bit cursive, it just reminds me of a low-rent wedding photographer.
Yeah, but overall, I think he's done a good job here. I think, I mean, I like the reflections. I think they're beautiful. Obviously, it's a beautiful scene.
I agree. I like it. I think it might be HDR. I can tell from sort of the dirtyish sky, but that goes with the industrial scene a little bit. Everything seems to pop so much in the middle. That's why I feel like it's got this level of micro contrast that might be HDR. But one thing I do like, well, I like the whole thing, but as far as the HDR goes, he's done a good job of making sure that there are blacks in it. Because sometimes when people do HDR, it's sometimes called a world without shadows, and I like to have blacks in my photos. There is something that's very similar between HDR and Impressionist painting, and Monet said that no shadows are black. Every shadow has colors, and that works fine with paintings and pigments, but I think pixels are different, and to me, to have some blacks in there help to anchor the eye, and they give other colors their vibration. So I like this black in here.
Yeah, the black is wonderful.
Yeah, so let's click on the next one that you linked to here. It's a Flickr photo?
This is a Flickr photo. This is Robert Smee.
Okay. All right, you go first. You go first, Thomas.
You know, I mean, I like this. I mean, one of the things I like about photos is I like abstraction. I mean, I like the color, I like the blur, I like the out of focus stuff. I get a lot of criticism on my own out of focus stuff. People will be like, "What is this? This is a terrible photograph." But I like I like the artistic elements. I like the you know, I like it when photographs feel a little bit more like a painting. And to me, there's a little bit of sharpness in the face here. So we've got kind of that spot, that one little spot in the photograph where it's sharp. But then everything else is more of an abstraction. It's more blurred. It's more like a painting. I like it.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, you have to watch out online for the focus police and the noise police.
Yeah.
Because it is their job to go around and let you know if you have a bit of noise or if something's out of focus. That's really their job, and that's why they're on Earth, and they've done a great service for us all. But if you can ignore these people, then you can get to this artistic thing, and that's one of the big things about today's cameras is they're all so good, they're all so perfect, they capture everything sharp and clean and nice, and really it's so literal. Everything is just there in front of your eyes, and there's nothing left to the unknown. And so when you start having nice blur effects or strange colors, it makes it mysterious. And then people kind of get the impression of something or the sense of something, and then they can fill in that mystery with their own being, with their own experience, with their own history. And then as they intertwine their own spirit with the photo, it becomes as much theirs as yours. So I'm a big fan of having out-of-focus stuff or strange, mysterious stuff in your photos or playing into mistakes.
Trey, I'm sure you've looked at a lot of the work by the earliest photographers, the pictorialists, where they did so much stuff that was more abstract, and it wasn't straight photography. photography. It was more interesting, kind of artistic-oriented photography, and I love that.
I agree. So let's look at this one, and this will be the last one, and then we'll just kind of tie it up for the evening.
Yes, this is Anna. I hope I'm gonna have a hard time pronouncing this last name, but I think it's Rumian Tisfava. I don't know how to pronounce that, but
okay.
But this is Anna's photograph, and you know, this was another one of all the ones. But you know, I like all of these. You know, I fault Anna and Billy both with the watermark thing, but that's just my own little personal pet peeve that I kind of never stop talking about. But this is, I think this is a very interesting shot. You know, it's one of these shots where it's sort of through a window, through a door. It's obviously highly processed. Trey, I'd be more interested in your opinion on this because this is obviously HDR. You know, but the detail in this photograph, the details are amazing. I love it.
Yeah, I think it's great too. You know me, I like HDR, but I'm even more critical of HDR because I like it so much. And really, I think it's a well accomplished photo, and I've got no problems with it. A few little things I would do, and this is the same thing I mentioned to Tom Anderson on one of his photos. Is that one problem with HDR is it makes everything so sharp and so micro contrasty and so textured that it can become sort of a feast for the eyes because your eye finds something everywhere, but then it tires out the eye a little bit if it has to absorb a maximum amount of texture everywhere. So sometimes I might take these trees off to the left or off to the right and have them not be so sharp. I might take the ground and not have it be so sharp. Maybe I just want the doors and the archway and the distant thing to be sharp. So the eyes, because the eyes like to latch on to lines and sharpness, and that's where the focus could be.
So more selective focus. This is everything is in focus here, but you're saying
yeah, everything is sharp here. I might blur out a few things here or there. And the only other minor thing I would do is the green has come off a tiny bit electric, and actually that's not green, it's actually yellow. If you drag that into Photoshop and you go to hue saturation, here I'll show you a little trick here. I'll actually pull up Photoshop and do this live with her photo. I hope she doesn't mind this. Here I go, breaking copyright laws right and left. Okay, here's this thing. This is Sketch, by the way. I love Sketch. I'm going to drag this into Photoshop. Where's my Photoshop? Where's my Photoshop? Here we go. Yeah, so watch. This is going to blow your mind. Maybe even your mind that knows all things, Thomas. Okay, here we go. So here we go. This is our photo. So we've got this green that's a little bit electric. Okay, let me just zoom in just a little bit. And I'm going to bring up hue saturation, which is image adjustments, hue saturation. Okay. And this allows you to adjust the saturation of the whole image, which we don't want to do, right? If you drop it there, it becomes quite desaturated. Why are we seeing it? Oh, preview's off. Okay. But here, I can change it to green. Let's say if I change to green, okay, and I lower the saturation, you'll see that the color doesn't really change too much. See that? So
Yeah.
what most people think is green, what your brain tells you is green, is actually usually yellow. And that's the reason for that is that this is all biomass. And so much of biomass is translucent, and you see light refracted and reflected through it, and it becomes yellow. So if I go here to the yellows, and I decrease the yellow, you're going to see the trees get much less electric.
Ah.
And now they look more just like green trees, rather than just, this is like electric green trees,
Right.
like fake green Walmart cheap Christmas tree.
Right.
And this is more sort of a natural tree. And that's something that HDR processing will do, is it will amp up the yellows in the greens and make everything look too electric. So that's a very minor thing there.
I like that. That's great.
All right, let me stop sharing my screen here. Oh, I got so many things I'm clicking on. Got like Command Central here. It's a lot. Okay, here we go. back to me. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks very much for coming. Did you have anything you want to say here as we close it out?
No, great hangout, man. I loved it as usual. Good stuff.
All right, good. Well, we'll do some more in the future. And thank you, everyone, very much for coming. It was nice seeing and talking to everyone, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye.
Right.
All right. Over
Bye,
and out.
Trey.
Bye.
Hi, Trey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.